Well, and especially with Greta, she's been very open about the fact that she has autism. And
Then
so there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, the autistic people have every right to an opinion, but then they hide behind, now you're bullying an autistic child when you
that
criticize her ideas. And, all right, well, now let's talk about our favorite teenage activist, Greta Thunberg, who is the climate doomer and kind of progressive champion. She has come under some scrutiny this week for deleting a 2018 tweet that did not age well. So on June 21st, 2018, Greta Thunberg tweeted a quote tweet of an article, and the quote she tweeted was, "A top climate scientist is warning that climate change will wipe out all of humanity unless we stop using fossil fuels over the next 5 years." Well, it's been 5 years. We haven't stopped using fossil fuels. And last time I checked, I hadn't been wiped out yet. Checking in on you. Did you survive? Have you survived so far?
look at a pulse. It's going good.
So what to make of this?
I've noticed this with the climate activists. It's always just 5 more years. Like, they are literally like a cult leader that's like, the end of times is coming. Jesus is coming back in 2021. Just kidding. Missed that a little bit. It's going to be
the Mayan thing. Remember that? The Mayan calendar, the apocalypse?
Mayan calendar. Yes. This is something that you can tell that they have cultish religious elements to this philosophy, because I grew up in religion and there are so many overlaps to how they act and talk about things. It's so doomsday. It's always very extremist, and everything's going to be dead and you're going to die and your kids are going to die unless you do this. And it's manipulative. It's very much based on fear mongering. It's not based on science whatsoever. And if they really did think that it was this impending, then maybe they'd start working with the right on things like nuclear energy and actually play ball. But it's not. It's about their economic agenda at large. And so they're not going to play ball. They just want to keep threatening you and bullying you so that you give in and go along with their complete lunacy when it comes to these issues. And I think she's such a hack. I mean, Greta just, it's hard because I feel bad for anybody who gets puppeted out like a kid, as she was. Her parents are really more responsible for this. You don't end up world famous and on the cover of all these magazines and as a top spokesperson on this issue if you don't have stage parents that are heavily working behind the scenes to put you out there. So I feel sorry for her in some context. I kind of think of her like a kid in show business, and a lot of times those kinds of kids, I know from experience, don't really get a very good education. They don't get a lot of exposure outside their bubbles. They're often very highly controlled behind the scenes. She's now an adult, so she has to start taking more responsibility for her positions and things she does. But anytime and this is one thing, I can't stand how both the left and right love to find kids to elevate their causes.
It's very manipulative and intellectually dishonest.
It's weird. I'm like, I don't trust any child for my public policy information. Why do you?
Well, and especially with Greta, she's been very open about the fact that she has autism. And so there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, the autistic people have every right to an opinion, but then they hide behind, now you're bullying an autistic child when you criticize her ideas. And to be fair, some people on the right have actually been nasty to her personally, which I don't agree with. But it's like they are very intentionally choosing like the most sympathetic possible messenger to hide a intellectually bankrupt message behind as kind of a shield for their ideas. Because even if you take the most charitable interpretation of what she claimed in this tweet, it's that not that we'd be wiped out in 5 years, but that if we didn't stop using fossil fuels within 5 years, then we're doomed eventually. That's not true. Like, no scientists agree with that. Even the IPCC, the climate panel from the United Nations, their worst case scenarios aren't extinction of humanity. There are lots of people being disrupted and dying and disasters and lots of things, but it's not extinction of the human race. It's just that has no basis in what scientists actually say. And unfortunately, you can see this with a lot of their predictions from this climate, because you and I are both people who care about climate change and who support free market solutions to the issue. But the unfortunate reality is that they keep discrediting their green movement. Go back and watch the movie An Inconvenient Truth by Al Gore from the early 2000s. Or it has aged so poorly. It made so many claims about what would have happened by now that haven't come true, yet was treated as gospel and used as this poetic warning to push for green. It's like they are addicted to making doomsday predictions that don't come true. And then they ask why nothing gets done. It's like, well, because you've done everything you could to discredit your movement with your doomsday exaggerated alarmist rhetoric.
And they constantly change their terminology. Even I remember I had to watch that Al Gore movie my freshman year of college. It was mandated. I had to go to the screening, and I was just rolling my eyes the entire time. But back then, it wasn't called climate change. They were talking about global warming, right? It was all about how the temperatures are going to keep rising. And then when that didn't happen, I actually think things were going the other direction, if I'm not mistaken. All of a sudden, they were like, well, actually, it's climate change that you should be worried about, not just global warming. It's climate change as a whole. The climate is changing, and that's the concern. And that's stupid. The climate has always been changing, will always be changing. They don't ground their arguments in actual facts. So again, I think personally that as a Christian, we have a moral responsibility to take care of the earth. I care about these things. I think that we want to be good stewards of the resources that we have. And I think there are really smart free market ways to ensure that we are better about that. But the entire grift that they have on climate change is a Trojan horse. I don't think they actually care that much about the climate at all. If they did, they'd be doing more to try to rein in the big polluters, which are not, it's not the US, by the way. It's places like China. And I think that right now, what they want to do, what they're trying to force here in this country under the climate change umbrella is economic suicide. And it needs to be combated heavily. And if they're going to use people like Greta come out and puppet their message, then she's going to get attacked for saying stupid things. And if you don't want kids to get attacked, find better messengers or find a better message entirely. But I don't think that she gets to hide behind a shield permanently because she's been a child when she said some of this. And I think as a whole, she speaks for many people who are trying to push this agenda, and they need to be made to confront their failures and their predictions that have been completely erroneous.